Welcome to the pod.
Welcome back into the Chris Mathis podcast. You heard it there first. I know you guys were expecting the classic introduction of the Chris Mathis podcast with Spencer Mathis at L Savage Spence on Twitter. However, you did not get that. I had to swap it up a little bit because we are officially in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs this weekend. A lot to get into, a lot of games to get into, and kind of talk some Tom Brady as well. Did Tom Brady play in his final game in Tampa Bay? Better yet, did Tom Brady play in his final game and the NFL on Monday night against the Dallas Cowboys as they got blown out at home, Raymond James Stadium? I was lucky enough to be there with the game day coverage for 95.3 WDAE. It was a bad game. It was one that I wish would have ended a little bit differently, obviously. It was my first ever playoff game of any sort. Never have been to a playoff game, much less worked and reported on a playoff game. It was pretty sweet. Got to be in the press conference room with head coach of the Buccaneers, Todd Bowles, and, of course, Tom Brady, too. It was not pretty, but we'll talk about those situations and what's next for the Buccaneers, as a lot of guys here in Tampa Bay think the Buccaneers will implode. They will rebuild. Mike Evans is gone, according to a lot of Buccaneers reporters. Levante David is gone. It's going to be a Buccaneers rebuild, according to a lot. Tom Krasnicki would not be surprised. Ronnie Night Train Lane would not be surprised. Michael Clayton would not be surprised. A lot of people are thinking the Buccaneers are going to blow this thing up, which is unfortunate, but it could very well happen. And Tom Brady is probably a thing of the past, according to what he said in his press conference after Monday night's loss on Monday Night Football and the playoffs to the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott looked dominant. Spence, obviously, the Cowboys-Bucs game was the most recent game played in the playoffs. Up to today's show here as we get set for these two games between the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles later on today. First game kicks off at 4:30, followed by an 8:15 nightcap between the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. But Spence, talk about Monday night's loss to the Dallas Cowboys for the Buccaneers. It was a bit of a shocker. Tom Brady threw the ball 66 times at the age of 45, which obviously did not complete enough passes to win the ball game. But for a 45-year-old quarterback to throw that many times was impressive in itself. Obviously, he played bad. His age looked like it caught up to him a bit. But what did you see in that game on Monday night for the Buccaneers? Obviously, with you being a pretty big fan of the Buccaneers, of Tom Brady, and hopefully that they would win that game on Monday night against Dallas.
Yeah, that game was what every Buccaneers fan had seen all season long so far, with bad play calling, the inability to run the football, the offensive line, especially that left side, just not holding up. Ryan Jensen did the best he could in that game. He had tore his ACL and did a lot of other things to his legs back in training camp, so you couldn't really ask much more from him. But the left side of the offensive line was terrible. Donovan Smith was bad. And like I said, the play calling was awful, and you saw a lot of the times where the running back would go out for routes whenever Leonard Fournette's got to be there chipping on the left side with Donovan Smith because he just cannot hold his own. I hope Donovan Smith is gone after this season. I think that may be a place that the Buccaneers might look to draft with their first round pick, that or a cornerback. They need secondary as well. They're probably going to lose a lot of players. The Buccaneers, it wasn't expected for them to be down 24-0 in that game, but it also, at the time of the game, I really wasn't shocked that was the end result was a huge blowout loss in which they tried to come back in the end. Mike Evans couldn't hold on to the deep ball. Even they wouldn't have came back either way, but it would have been a nice last final throw of Tom Brady's career. Instead, he ends the game throwing 66 times, completing just 50% of those passes for two touchdowns and an interception. So Brady does not go out on top. I don't think that's his final NFL game ever. I think he's going to play with another franchise next season. But the Buccaneers, I've seen a lot of things with the Mike Evans stuff about him leaving next year. I don't think that, because Mike Evans' contract is up after this season. I think he'll leave after this next season. So he's got one more year with the Bucs on his contract. Then the Buccaneers will probably not extend that. Same thing with Levante David. I think that's a guy that we could see not play another game in a Buccaneers uniform, which would be bad for the Buccaneers. And of course, he's an aging linebacker. They've got to try and get a little bit younger. It's sad. Same thing happened with Derek Brooks. It's happened a lot of times. Gerald McCoy, the defensive tackle that used to be a stud for the Buccaneers. It happens late in your career. Same thing with John Lynch when John Lynch went over to the Broncos. So I think it's expected for the Buccaneers to go full rebuild mode. Besides that receiving core, I think that those top three receivers are going to stay together. Hopefully Russell Gage is okay. New quarterback should be in town in Tampa next year. Not sure who, but I'm fine with it at this point. I think Brady will go play another place. I don't think he's going to win another Super Bowl, but he will be another. He's going to play in the playoffs next season. I think it's going to be for an AFC team, the Las Vegas Raiders. But we'll see what the Buccaneers can do. I think it was just expected. It was unexpectedly expected. The blowout was horrible, but as the game was going on, I was kind of like, wow, we've seen this all year. What did I really expect? And I think a lot of Buccaneers fans felt the same way.
Yeah, the real fans that actually kept up with the games realize that. But you see a lot of people on Twitter, social media, tweeting at us, tweeting at 953WDAE regarding the Buccaneers and what's going on. Mike Evans and Tom Brady look to have a disconnect. Yeah, they've had it all season long. There's something there. There's definitely something there between Tom Brady and Mike Evans. Fortunately, Mike did get another 1,000-yard season. That's 9 consecutive years to start off his NFL career, which is incredible. We'll continue talking about that here in just a moment. But I want to shout out our sponsor here. Of course, Information on Demand, as they bring you each and every edition of the Chris Mathis podcast. Big time shout out to my friends there at IOD. Whether you need criminal background checks, drug screenings, E-Verify, academic accreditations, or other screening services, they've got you covered. It doesn't matter if you're here in Florida, if you're in North Georgia, if you're across the country on the western side. As Spencer said, maybe he plays for Las Vegas. Tom Brady plays for Vegas. It doesn't matter if you're in Vegas. It doesn't matter if you're in Nebraska. Information on Demand can take care of you, and they can get you that information that you need in just 8 hours or less. You'll be able to rest easy knowing a highly trained search team will get you that information. Again, Information on Demand. They're fast. They're accurate. They're affordable pre-employment background screening services. They can obviously help you out today. Visit them today at informationondemand.net or go to give them a call right now. Pick up your phone, dial that number, 855-914-4636, 855-914-4636. Again, Information on Demand brings you each and every edition of the Chris Mathis podcast, and we continue to talk about what happened in the NFL last week, and of course, what will happen later on today and tomorrow as well in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. What a weekend we have ahead of us here with NFL football games. But Spence, what leads you to believe that Tom Brady could go play one more year, and on top of that, go to the AFC, most definitely the most difficult conference in all of football? You have to go through Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Tua, obviously a guy in Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Why would that entice Tom Brady to try to take a chance and potentially tarnish his final season at age 46 next year and not look nearly his best whatsoever? We saw that this year in a very easy NFC South division. Why would he go to a very difficult AFC conference as a whole?
Well, I think that I just don't think the Buccaneers were a team that was ready to win anything this season. Although they went 8-9, a lot of the struggles were with Brady, of course, at quarterback. But a horrible season for Brady is just another season for a guy like Justin Herbert. They both had the exact same stats. Brady had more passing yards, the exact same amount of touchdowns, one less interception than Herbert, and he's highly touted. You look at Brady, terrible offensive line, the worst run game in NFL history throughout an entire season. Obviously, they had good receiving core and everything, but the play calling was awful, and everyone could see that from week one on, besides, I guess, Tom Brady. For some reason, him and Byron Leftwich would just continuously try and give each other jobs, if you know what I'm saying. But I just don't think that was the last time we're going to see Brady. I don't think he's going to go out with a losing record in the regular season in a first-round wild card exit, which would be the first time ever. So I think that we're going to see Brady with another team next year. I don't know if it's going to be the 49ers because they got a lot of quarterbacks over there now with Brock Purdy, who's been pretty good. We'll see Purdy, if he can take them all the way to the Super Bowl, will be the quarterback next year for the 49ers, and they won't even look at Tom Brady. But you look at the Las Vegas Raiders, there's a quarterback vacancy there that they need to fill, and I think that was like the main team that everybody was looking out for back in 2020 whenever Brady left the Patriots was the Raiders, and that was before Josh McDaniels. They still had, I think, John Gruden, head coach at that point. So now they've got a better head coach in terms of Tom Brady having some chemistry with this guy. They've got a great receiving core with Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. They've got a good running game with Josh Jacobs, who led the league in rushing yards. Their defense is terrible, but I think that's enough weapons for Brady, and they have a decent offensive line. So we'll see exactly what Brady will do next year, but I do not think he's going to retire after this season.
Yeah, I think if he doesn't retire, it's Tampa Bay or retirement. Those are the two options. I just don't see Tom Brady going elsewhere. Again, the AFC is so difficult. He's not going to compete in the AFC at this age unless he goes into a perfect situation, which, again, he has no shot of repeating like he did in 2020, where he took the Buccaneers all the way. They got the job done there his first year against Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, some way, somehow made that happen. He was 44 then. I don't think that it happens at age 46 with a whole new situation. He finally had a year where you're kind of like, okay, Father Time has caught up to him a little bit. Now, we saw 3 weeks ago at this point, against the Carolina Panthers, Tom Brady looked dominant. He connected with Mike Evans 3 times down the field for 3 big touchdowns, and then all the questions went away for a day. But again, the inconsistencies with the offensive line, Ryan Jensen going down in training camp very early. It was day 2 or day 3 in training camp going down, really sucked. The Bucs did not really bring in any help on that offensive line and a veteran presence. They moved Robert Hainsey to center, a guy who's never played center in his life. He did a very good job. However, that was not ideal. That's not something that you want to see happen. And they did try to make that work. And Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, finally got the boot. I thought he was a terrible offensive coordinator even that first year when they won it all. I thought that he had some terrible play calls back then. It was simply the fact that the Buccaneers had Tom Brady. He was rejuvenated, coming off of a very unusual offseason. COVID was a situation. The Bucs offense was stacked. Devin White finally showed out, made big plays when it mattered the most. I just think that it was time for Byron Leftwich to get the boot. I think that Tom Brady either comes back to Tampa Bay, to the team that gave him 14 days off during the training camp, a team that let him go to his ex-boss's wedding, Robert Kraft, during the middle of the season. I think there's some leeway there, and we talked about it earlier today on the Ronnie and T-Crash show on 95.3 WDAE about that, but he's been hooked up so many times, and obviously with the Buccaneers in just a 3-year stint. Hey, I want Rob Gronkowski. Okay, we'll go get you Rob Gronkowski. Hey, I want another receiver. Russell Gage comes in. I just think that too many things went his way in Tampa Bay that if he's a stand-up guy, he'll feel obligated in a sense to have to repay the Buccaneers by either coming back to play one more year, giving it another shot, helping pick out the offensive coordinator, or just deciding, hey, I'm going to hang it up.
No, I don't think he's coming back. I think it's either retirement or he goes to another team. I don't think Brady's coming back to the Buccaneers regardless. I don't think he likes Todd Bowles. I don't know why you would want to come back to Todd Bowles. I don't care who the offensive coordinator is. Hopefully, I think right now people are saying Todd Monk, and I think that'd be a decent fit. And I would really like that if they wanted to go in a direction of maybe bringing a guy back that they've already had, bring back Monken and Winston just for the glory days for me. But I don't see Brady coming back to the Buccaneers. I think I've already like looked past it. Like I would love him to come back to Tampa Bay, but I just do not think that's in the cards for Brady if he really wants to win another Super Bowl and go out on top, because the Buccaneers roster is only going to get worse next season. There's no improvement that's going to happen. And the only thing they could do is keep the same players, which we've already seen how that has gone. I mean, they would probably be a little bit better next year. They'd probably be 10-7 or whatever, but the NFC South is going to be better next season. We'll see exactly what these other teams will do. I think Carolina's in a pretty good spot with their cap space. The Falcons are in a good spot with their cap space. The NFC South could look completely different next season, even though those two teams were near the top with Tampa Bay this year. I think that the Buccaneers are going to flip themselves around and turn themselves over on the head, because I don't think Brady's coming back, and we'll see exactly what Todd Bowles wants to hire for his staff. But I don't know if anyone's going to be wanting to come here as an offensive or defensive coordinator to Todd Bowles' staff, because I think that they see that he has a short leash. He had this first year, not good. His next year, if they don't have a good year with his staff, I don't think that those guys get to stay either. So we'll see exactly who the Buccaneers can get. But I think right now a lot of people are saying Todd Monken, and I think that that's actually a good possibility, because an offensive coordinator in college can only become an offensive coordinator in the NFL next. He can't just go straight to head coach. So I think Monken would be a good choice for the Buccaneers. We'll see exactly what they do, but I don't know really what the appealing factor is. If you want to come to Tampa, you've got 30-year-old Mike Evans. Yeah, you've got 30-year-old Mike Evans. You've got Chris Godwin, who's had a really good season coming off his injury. You've got Russell Gage, who kind of disappointed. Hopefully he's okay. Apparently he is. You have a horrible running game. You have not good tight ends at all. I mean, Kate Otten is going to be the only guy left with Ko Keefe because Cameron Brate's out the door. Leonard Fournette's gone, so your only running back is Rashad White. You're not going to keep Giovanni Bernard. The roster is going to look completely different. You're going to have to deal with new offensive linemen. We don't know about Jensen, because I'm pretty sure he signed a 1-year deal to come back with Brady last season. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen there either. So I think the Buccaneers are going to look completely different on both sides of the football, and I think we're going to see a lot of changes in the secondary as well.
Yeah, obviously, the Buccaneers decided to start Sean Murphy-Bunting over Jamel Dean in that game on Monday night after Jamel Dean had a solid year. Sean Murphy-Bunting did not, and SMB was exposed in that game on Monday night. And then after the game, you see I was in the locker room with the Buccaneer players, and they were, talking about defensive backs, Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting, two guys that I've gotten to know over this season. They were conversing back and forth like it was all good, but his contract's up. Jamel Dean's contract is up, and when they needed him most, the coach decided, hey, you're not the guy for this game. We're going to go with the other option. I think Jamel Dean walks, and he's a good corner. He's not great. He's a good corner. He's got a lot of potential. But I think that the Buccaneers really screwed up with that one, unless there's something going on behind closed doors. I actually spoke with Sean Murphy-Bunting following that game, and he said that head coach Todd Bowles had a good game plan. He gave us a good speech at halftime, this and that. The third sounded like a guy to me that was sticking up for a guy that gave him a shot to play in the biggest game of the year, and he did not play very well. So that's what I got from Sean Murphy-Bunting. Whether we agree on Tom Brady and what he does next year at the age of 46, I don't know. I think that we can agree to disagree. But one thing we can agree on are these playoff games scheduled for today. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they'll take on the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. The Chiefs, 9.5-point favorites in this game. Trevor Lawrence had one of the craziest games of his career last week. 4 interceptions in the first half, down 27 points at half. Came back, stormed back to win the game in that one. Trevor Lawrence looked dominant. He has yet to lose any game of any sort on a Saturday in his life dating back to high school. So does that happen today between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Jacksonville Jaguars? Kickoff at 4:30 at Arrowhead.
Yeah, I think that's the only really intriguing thing about this game is that Trevor Lawrence has never lost on a Saturday. I think 30-something-0, which is pretty incredible. And I think that's kind of weird. I honestly, whenever I saw that stat, I was kind of shocked that he'd only played 30-so games on Saturday in his entire career. With of course, he played at a huge high school, who probably played a good amount of Saturday games. He played at Clemson.
With the state championships. I think he played 2.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure how this game – I mean, I'm pretty sure that this game is going to go just one way. It's the Chiefs at home. Patrick Mahomes has never failed to make an AFC championship game ever since he became a starter. I think it's 4 consecutive years. He's an incredible quarterback. Right now, he's trending to become one of the greatest of all times if he can win a Super Bowl this year. And if he can do that this year, I think that this is the year that they can do it because they got Kadarius Toney at receiver to replace Tyreek Hill. He's not the same player, but he's a very gadgety, fast player. You've still got Travis Kelce. You've got Juju Smith in the slot, who's done a really good job this season. Their running game, still not great, but I don't really think there's any AFC team with an incredible run game, especially the Buffalo Bills. Theirs is almost as bad as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But in this game, it's the Jaguars versus the Chiefs, and I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one. I don't know what the spread is for this game.
9.5.
9.5 is incredibly high, but you go back to that game last week, and the Jaguars were down 27-0 to a not good Chargers team. Of course, they came back, an incredible comeback for Trevor Lawrence. But I think that this may be a 10-point game, and the Chiefs are going to win this one.
So I like the matchup decent. I think it should be a closer spread than 9.5. However, I do feel as if we saw the Jacksonville Jaguars play their best game of the season last week. I don't think that they could somewhat muster up even a similar performance whatsoever. I know they're not going to be down by 27 at halftime, I'd imagine. At least I hope not. I hope it's a competitive game. However, no matter what the score is, I don't see them storming back. I think they just played their best game of the season, and it was a whirlwind there in the second half in which they were able to overcome 4 first-half interceptions thrown by second-year quarterback Trevor Lawrence, who's taken a massive leap, beat Justin Herbert last week in the Chargers, which was incredible for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I just don't think they have enough in this game to pull off an upset in one of the loudest, if not the loudest environments of all of the National Football League against a guy, as you said, who's very experienced in the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes. He wins a lot. He's not having to worry about Tom Brady breathing down his neck this year. If he goes the distance, the big dance on Super Bowl Sunday. I do think that the Jacksonville Jaguars come up just short in this game. I don't know if it's a 10-point game. It could be close. But I think that the Jags do have everything backed up against them and putting Trevor Lawrence back in the corner.
Yeah, and I want to add this. If Tom Brady did not exist, I think Patrick Mahomes would be looking for his 3rd or 4th Super Bowl right now in the AFC. I mean, Brady took the Super Bowl appearance away from Patrick Mahomes in 2018. Then in 2019, the Chiefs went on, won the Super Bowl because Brady was out. 2020, Brady with the Buccaneers in his first year defeats Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And then last year, I forgot exactly what happened to the Chiefs, but I mean, without Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes here, I think Mahomes is going for at least his 3rd Super Bowl right now. Instead, he's still trying to get his 2nd. I think this might be the year because I think the Buffalo Bills are good, but I think Josh Allen is a turnover-prone quarterback, and I don't think that that's Patrick Mahomes at all. I think the Chiefs are a well-built team. I don't think they're as well-rounded as the Buffalo Bills, but the quarterback is just I think Patrick Mahomes is just the best quarterback in the league by leaps and bounds ahead of Josh Allen, and I'm going to stick with that one.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because they did go without Tyreek Hill, and a lot of people question if Tyreek Hill would be a huge loss of contribution for Patrick Mahomes. Of course he has been, but not in a sense where you're like, man, Patrick Mahomes sucks. The guy is
Yeah.
still the best quarterback in the NFL. And I had Josh Allen winning the MVP coming into this year. However, he's had some very questionable throws, a lot of interceptions in the red zone that you pointed out, probably week 8, week 9 of this year, Spence, and kind of become a thing that's, wouldn't say regular, but you're not surprised anymore when he does throw it. You're like, okay, that's a
Mhm.
Josh Allen risk it, no biscuit throw. And that's what we've seen. The guy also runs a little bit too much for my liking. I'm not a fan of the Buffalo Bills by any means, but watching him take off, I know he's a big guy. It scares me, and I'm just a fan of the game, watching from the outside looking in.
Yeah, but the size of Josh Allen, I think, is he's bigger than Cam Newton was, which is pretty incredible. And he's got a better arm. I think Josh Allen's a very talented quarterback, but he makes Jameis Winston type plays occasionally. Not really plays where he's trying to extend. He kind of just throws it into double coverage pretty often. He throws that 1v1 ball a lot. And a lot of the times the deep safety will come up and intercept it. The quarterback will win the battle against the receiver. Josh Allen is a risky quarterback, which it may get him somewhere. It may get him somewhere this season. It might, just with how much of a risk taker he is. It could somehow get the Bills past a team like the Kansas City Chiefs or the Cincinnati Bengals, which I don't think the Bengals are as good as the Chiefs. But it's going to be tough for Josh Allen to outduel Patrick Mahomes in a game. Last year, we saw it come down really close, but Patrick Mahomes on that final drive in overtime, that first drive in overtime, literally just fed Travis Kelce an entire drive and just moved down the field in like 34 seconds. It was an incredible game. I hope we get to see that matchup again. I'm not sure if it's possible right now with the seeding, how it's going, but I just don't think that I don't think the Jaguars are gonna be able to keep up with the Chiefs this week, and I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be the MVP as well. Just add that in there.
Also, guys, make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at TCM_pod, the Chris Mathis podcast. Also, drop a 5-star review or any star review. I really don't care. We're trying to always get better. Any star review, any review of any sort is a good review in my eyes. Want to shout out Bryant, whose daughter works at Planet Fitness that I work out at. Her name's Brianna. She told me that her dad loves the podcast. He tunes in often. Also heard me on the Ronnie and T Crash show, knows me from that as well. So that was pretty cool. I hooked Brian up with 2 the Chris Mathis podcast stickers, signed one of them. That way he could keep. And the other one I gave him just to, do whatever he wanted with. But anyway, shout out to Bryant. Really appreciate you, man. It means a lot. Also, shout out to my guy, Josh Capo of Pewter Report, who's also dialed in. He's the cap analyst for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Pewter Report. He's a fan of the podcast, too. He's dialed in right now as we continue to talk about this NFL divisional round weekend of the playoffs. The New York Giants will take on the Philadelphia Eagles, a battle of a pair of NFC East teams. And the Eagles, obviously the home team, 7.5-point favorites against Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. Saquon Barkley healthy. Somehow they've made it. After a hot start, they cooled off midway through the season, got hot maybe 3 out of the last 7 weeks, and then cooled off again, but had just enough to trickle their way into the playoffs. Talk about this matchup as the Giants hit the road as the 7.5-point underdog in Philadelphia. And this kickoff tonight, 8:15.
Yeah, I really like this matchup, and I think I really like the New York Giants right now, minus their receiving core. I don't think their receiving core is anywhere near where it needs to be, especially when you look at the Eagles. I mean, it's night and day with the weapons on both of these teams' offenses. But then you got Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones is having a pretty good season. He had an incredible game last week against the Minnesota Vikings, who were a 13-win team. And they really they held that game. They held their ground the entire game in that one. But I think that the home field advantage for Philadelphia is just such a huge thing. That's one of the greatest places to play a playoff game at home is in Philadelphia with the Eagles. I think that the one saving grace for the Giants in this game is that Jalen Hurts hasn't played in a while. I think it's been 4 or 5 weeks since he's played an NFL snap. And I'm not exactly sure if he's going to be completely ready. I think he will be. We'll see exactly if he can run as much as he was earlier on in the season whenever he was the MVP front runner, which he is not anymore. After even before that injury happened, he had already ran his way out of that race after they had lost their first game. But the Eagles are an incredible team. They are a team that rivals the San Francisco 49ers. I like the New York Giants. I like how Brian Daboll has completely turned that franchise around, but I just do not think that they match up with the Eagles at all. I get it's an NFC East matchup. That's going to play a factor into this game as well. It's always tough whenever you play a division opponent for the 3rd time in the same season, but I think that spread is fair. I think the Eagles are going to win this game. I'm going to go with Eagles by 8 or more points in this game, just because I think that I want to see an NFC championship game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers, because those two teams are the best in the NFC, but that's not always how the NFL games shake out. The best team's not going to win every single game. If it were baseball, it could be. I mean, the series are much different. If the NFL played the games like series, it would work out that way. And the Buccaneers wouldn't have been Super Bowl champions in 2020, but it's not that way. It's a one game playoff, and I think that it's not going to go in the Giants' way in this game. I think the Eagles are going to win this one, and I hope Patrick Johnson gets a couple of tackles on special teams in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even get some pressures on, of course, Daniel Jones. He has the chance to get some playing time there. Obviously, Patrick Johnson, a linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles, joined us for Talk to Him Tuesday about 9 months ago at this point. Phenomenal guy. We know his sister from Young Harris College. She's a basketball phenom there at Young Harris College. Superstar, if you will. But Chris Canty, he's a former NFL defensive lineman. He joined us on the Ronnie and T-Crash show on Friday and said, basically in a nutshell, what you had said about Jalen Hurts and him not playing in 4 or 5 weeks, and the Giants probably going to try to, in a way, I'm paraphrasing here, said that, not to be surprised if they would try to pressure Jalen Hurts and rattle him a little bit. They know that he's a little bit banged up. He's coming off of an injury, to look out for that, and that might play a factor into the Giants staying in this ball game in Philadelphia. It's a divisional matchup game between two teams that obviously NFC East teams that have gone at it for years. Some way, somehow, they got healthy at just the right time. Talking about the New York Giants, they got in the groove at just the right time. Here they are. And as you said, the better team, the team that plays the best wins. The team that plays the best on any given day wins. It doesn't mean that the better team wins. However, I do think that the better team, no matter what the situation is with Jalen Hurts, is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they're just too well-rounded. They've got a lot of experience on that defensive line, too. I think they'll get a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones, not even talking about the Giants side of things. With that spread being at 7.5, I will take the Eagles at home. That's a shout-out to Trenton right now, who's also dialed in. Now we'll move on to tomorrow's games before we wrap up the podcast right here, the Chris Mathis podcast. Chris Mathis joined by Spencer Mathis. Follow us on Twitter at TCM_pod, at L Savage Spence, at the Chris Mathis. The Buffalo Bills, they'll host the Cincinnati Bengals at 3 o'clock tomorrow, Spence. Bills, 5.5-point favorites against Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Yeah, I like this game a lot. And last week I saw the Buffalo Bills struggle against the Miami Dolphins, who started Skylar Thompson at quarterback. The defense struggled. The offense struggled because of the Josh Allen turnovers in that game. Their running game, again, was absolutely horrendous, just like it has been all season, just like the Buccaneers has been. And then you look over at the Cincinnati Bengals. I really like Joe Burrow. I like what they did in last year's playoffs, even though they were a team that wasn't supposed to go to the Super Bowl, and they ended up going by beating Patrick Mahomes' Chiefs. And I think that this year we may see them beat another powerhouse in the Buffalo Bills, because I just think that Joe Burrow is a very good leader. I think that their receiving core is incredible. It is by far the best in the league. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow as the connection is absolutely insane. Those two guys make it look like they're throwing the football outside in their backyards each and every single week. So I'm not exactly sure which team I'm going to pick in this game. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals are a very good team. I don't know if they really are as well-rounded as the Buffalo Bills. So I think I'm going to have to take the Buffalo Bills in this game. The Bills still have a lot of firepower. Josh Allen's going to have to play a great game. I don't think the Bengals defense is that good. And I think that Bills defense is a little bit better than what they showed last week against the Miami Dolphins. And that could have been just a game, like a trap game that you would say in the regular season, in which you may end up losing the game to a bad team like the Miami Dolphins with a third-string quarterback. This week, I think they're going to be dialed in. They're the home team, and playing in Buffalo is going to be difficult for the Cincinnati Bengals, and we're going to finally get to see this game go through. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills in this game.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good game no matter what. However, I will say the inconsistencies up front with the offensive line worry me a lot when it comes to Joe Burrow. Alex Kappa has officially been ruled out for the Bengals in this game. He's a guard. Also, a couple of other guys. Tackle La'el Collins obviously out. He's banged up. Jonah Williams, he's out with a kneecap injury. He's a tackler as well.
Buffalo by far with Von Miller on the other side. Remember last year?
Von's hurt.
Is he not playing?
Remember Von Miller? I think he tore his ACL a while back, something along that nature.
Is he's out for the rest of the year?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, ACL. Oh. I mean, maybe he can come back, but he's not been practicing this week.
No, he's done.
So,
well, I don't really know. I mean, you saw Cincinnati, you saw the Bengals last year with a worse offensive line than they had this year, and they were in the Super Bowl. So we'll see exactly what the Bengals can do, because in that one game, who was it against? I think it was against the Tennessee Titans. Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times, and they won the game on McPherson field goals by Joe Burrow just sitting in there, taking the hits, running around like he does all game. I mean, I could see the Bengals winning this game. I like the spread sitting there at 5.5. I think is what you said. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills.
I think that's why it's competitive.
I'm going to go with the Bills in this game, but I'm going to take the Bengals with that spread. Buffalo to win, though.
I think Buffalo wins as well, but I would not be totally shocked if Cincinnati squeaked out a victory.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be shocked. That's a touchdown. That's 2 field goals there. 5.5. It's either 5 points or 6 points. I'm going to go with the Bills at home. Wrapping up the NFC divisional, the divisional round of the NFL playoffs tomorrow with the nightcap. Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers, 2 teams that have really taken over in prime time this year. You got Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy leading the way for the San Francisco 49ers. He looks on at Tom Brady and says, hey, I want a career half as good as yours, buddy boy. I was the last draft pick in the NFL draft, and I'm going to one-up you, if you will. He'll take on, of course, Dak Prescott, who arguably played the best game of his career on Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Stepped up big, had 2 key runs against the Buccaneers, made the Buccaneers look silly. A lot of question marks coming to that game as Dak Prescott lost it. Is he a turnover machine? He threw an interception in 7 consecutive games. Can he get the job done against Devin White and the Buccaneers defense in Tampa Bay on Monday night? And Dak Prescott says, hey, F you, buddy boys. I'm going to come back and dominate prime time against Tom Brady. And he said it last year, the year prior. We'll be back. We'll be back when he lost to the Buccaneers in the playoffs the year before. And here they are. And they beat the Buccaneers this time around. So, obviously, Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, the 49ers favorites, 4-point favorites at home. It's an 8:15 kickoff. 6:30 kickoff tomorrow night. What do you got?
Yeah, the fact that this spread is smaller than the Bengals spread against the Buffalo Bills is pretty wild to me, because how I was looking at it last week, I chose the Cowboys to win. But even if the Buccaneers were to win that game, I think I would have said that whoever won that game last week is going to get beat by the San Francisco 49ers. And what we're looking at, I think, is an NFC Championship game between the 49ers and the Eagles whenever this game has settled on Sunday night, because I think that the 49ers are leaps and bounds ahead of the Dallas Cowboys. Brock Purdy's done a good job. That receiving core there in San Francisco is incredible. George Kittle's incredible. That defense is the best in the NFL. Last week, Dak Prescott went against the Buccaneers defense. Apparently, they had stolen the Buccaneers defensive signs. Kellen Moore had somehow gotten them, is what Dan Orlovsky was saying on Get Up on Tuesday morning after that Monday night game, in which the Buccaneers were absolutely dismantled by Dak Prescott. You said it was his best game of all time. This game right here for Dak Prescott is the most important game of his career so far, and it may be the most important game of his career ever, because he's going against an incredible defense, one that rivaled the Buccaneers defense of 2020, in which they won the Super Bowl. This defense is better than that, and I think that if Prescott can string together a really good game and somehow keep this one close or win this game, Prescott's legacy is a lot different than if he loses this game by how I think this game's going to go, because I see the San Francisco 49ers beating the Dallas Cowboys in this one by 10-plus points, just because that roster is incredible. That offensive line is incredible. Everything from the top down of that team, with Christian McCaffrey at running back, the weapons you have on the receiving core, the great defense that you have. I mean, their secondary is not the best, but their front seven is incredible. Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in the league. I mean, I think the 49ers kind of mismatched the Cowboys or the Buccaneers in every single way besides quarterback. I know I'm not going to go ahead and say that Brock Purdy's a better quarterback than Dak Prescott, but also Brock Purdy's not going up against a defense like the San Francisco 49ers. He's going up against a defense like the Dallas Cowboys, who of course laid the Buccaneers and Tom Brady to bed on Monday night last week. But I just don't foresee the Dallas Cowboys winning this game. I don't really see it staying necessarily close. I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers in this game. McCaffrey's going to have a huge game. I think he's going to go 140 total yards in this game, maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns. I'm going to go with 2 touchdowns in this game, and then you're going to see a lot of trick plays that they may bust out if this game gets close at any point, which I think it'll be close in the first half. But the San Francisco 49ers are probably the best NFC team, and I think they're definitely better than the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm going to go with the 49ers in this game, and I hope that we get to see an NFC Championship game between the 49ers and Eagles next week.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet simply because I think this is such an easy game to pick. The San Francisco 49ers, Christian McCaffrey is going to do his thing. That defense, is a really good defense, arguably one of the best defenses since San Francisco's 2012 defense, which was gnarly back in the day, which hard to believe. It's been over 10 years since that defense led by Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman. I think Deshaun Goldson was a safety there. There's a great cornerback there as well. Somebody up front, too, that was a superstar defensive end there for the 49ers. I'm blanking on his name right now. He got into some legal trouble later on in his career. But such a talented team there. This defense is similar to that, except they've got a very well-oiled machine on offense. Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. Of course, you look at a quarterback that's made a name for himself, and Brock Purdy. Brandon Ayuk, a solid receiver, too. He's having a good year. So I think that the San Francisco 49ers have this game in the bag, and they get the job done on Sunday night.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco versus the Eagles next week, and then you're also looking at the Chiefs versus the Bills next week, and that's the two best NFC and AFC championship games in the same season that we've seen, I think, ever.
In a while.
The two matchups.
In a while, in a very long time. So it should be interesting. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's NFL divisional round of the playoffs. As always, we appreciate you guys. Tweet us, message us, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the whole 9 yards. You guys know what to do at CCM_pod. We appreciate you guys. And we will be back next week, hopefully talking about potential upsets. And maybe we'll see what goes on in the NFL. Does Tom Brady hang up the cleats before the Super Bowl? Some people think that he'll do it the day before the Super Bowl. We'll find out. As always, thanks for tuning in.
Bon voyage, biatches.